Okay, now we're getting into the final phase of this project. We're going to replace the timer. We're going to use a GE timer on here. Been using GE timers for as long as I can remember. Never had many problems with them. The timer that's in here, this is a Renko timer. I had a lot of problems with these, but it's unbelievable that this thing lasted 35 years. So anyway, we got a timer. We have two fan switches, 742.59. These are sub-zero parts. One's for the fan, one's for the ice maker, and of course the thermostat, which we have right here. And we will just put all these pieces in here and get this thing. I'm anxious to get it done because I have some other shop work to do. So here's the thermostat. I'm surprised that it was available. Part number here. It's a 305-2524. Different than this, the 702-1070. Says it's 422 IM. It's amazing that it's still available because they stopped making parts for this back in the 80s. So what I'm going to do to get this thermostat in there, I'm going to take some WD-40 and shoot it down this tubing right here. Because it'll make it easier to, hopefully it'll run down and come out over here and be able to fish that capillary tube or the line. It's right up here. So it comes up, goes through the tubing, comes up and it comes out here and it sits right on top of that ice maker. That's the coldest area. We'll see if that works. In the meantime, let's remove the timer. There's your ground wire. This just unplugs. This is a WR9X483. I've been using these for many, many years. Never had any problems with them. I believe this is a 10-hour timer, and that's a 6-hour timer, so I never had any problems with these things icing up or not defrosting properly. Usually when you get these, they're always in the defrost cycle. So just turn it a little bit and get it out of a defrost cycle. Okay, that's the old one. line up your knob, make sure you got it on right. That's the off. Hear that click? That's the off position, which means this goes like that. Oh, I just noticed they have these little washers here. Okay. Ground wire. Ground wire is going to go right here. All right, so we're going to put a new terminal on there. Just like this. Okay. Same thing with this one. Okay, as I said before, these wires and all these terminals are very brittle because they've been sitting around there for 35 years. Gotta make sure. Okay. There, and that's on. The only thing we have to do now is we'll put some electrical tape. All right, so this is basically done. All we need to do now, I'm not sure how difficult this is going to be. This is going to go. I can see that WD-40 is down here, which means it worked its way down, which is good. So that means it lubricated that tubing. It should be easy to get this in here. So let's try it. Try to get the kinks out. Now my fingers are all oily. Oh boy. All right. Another trick. Gonna need a piece of sandpaper to get a grip on that. Finally got it. You can see cap tube is coming out of that copper tubing right there, and it's going to go like that. It was a little bit of a challenge to get it in. All right, so now we're going to plug in our Molex connectors here. This one is there you go. Phew. All right, I'm going to hook up, well, this timer doesn't have a ground wire on it. That's what that little screw is for there. So let's make sure this cap tube is not anywhere near anything electrical. No purpose of, okay, we got clearance up there. Okay, starting to come together. So next thing we'll do is the evaporator fan. kind of a universal, fits all the 200 and 300 series, 500 series. Some of the newer Sub-Zero are not using these motors. They're using ceramic high efficiency motors. This particular motor is says Bay Motor Products. Never heard of them. Anyway, these are for the 500 series. And those are fan brackets, like right there. It's for a different model. The little bushings and connectors. Here's a little Molex connector right here. You put that together so it matches this. So right now, we'll take this off. So the new bracket goes like this. So that it goes on the motor like this, just like that one. And there's the screws in here. It does come with instructions, but I've read them a million times. Now, in case you're wondering which way this motor turns, if you're not a technician, you look at these poles here. When the shaft facing your nose, if the pole is on the left on the top, it's clockwise, it turns this way. If the pole's up here on the top, it's counterclockwise. This is clockwise motor. If you look at the blade, can't put the blade on yet. If you look at the blade, you'll see. So clockwise, you can see the way the blades are shaped. It's scooping the air and it's pushing it forward. That's why it's pitched this way. If this motor were turning this way, it would push the air back towards the back. But this scoops the air up and moves it forward. Okay, let's put the blade on. We need this little Molex connector here. So if you look at the old motor, the red wire is on the end. These bottoms of this two pins are flat, so you line it up like that. We'll put our red wire here, and our white wire is in the middle. And our ground wire right here. So that's the same. Okay. Got a screw hole over here. It's a self-threading screw. Okay, good. All right, let's save these little rubber bushings. You never know when you're going to need them. And that's the 420-0170. That's the evaporator fan motor kit for the 200, 300, 500 series refrigerator food section. The freezer is a different motor. It's got pins on the back. Although on this motor you could remove these two support studs to the back and use this on a freezer. But they make a separate kit for that. So, all right, let's get to the next thing. We are coming into the home stretch here. So I put our covers back on, fans in, thermostat's in properly, and by the way, this tubing mounts underneath this bracket. There's a little cutout here, so that slips right in there, so it's not in the way of the ice maker. The ice maker that was in here was fairly new, so I may not change that to save the customer a little bit of money. And also I wanted to mention that this compressor can also use R414 refrigerant. It tells you right in the instructions. And there's a changeover here. If you have, if you're using R414A, then you have to adjust the charge, and you have to charge it with liquid. But since we were using R12, we just weighed in 8.5 ounces. But you can use R414A in here, in this machine, if you ever run into one of these old R12 sealed systems. You just have to adjust the charge. It tells you that there's a 20% less than the R12 amount. So they give you a little scale here. If we were using R414A, since this machine took 8.5 ounces, it would take 6.8 ounces of R414A. But no problem for us. We put the virgin R12 in there because we had it. And I'll save these instructions for future use, but that's the way the factory recommended it. So we're about ready to turn this thing on. It's already been charged up. I just have to do a little bit of work around the door frame. I want to sand this and paint it, and paint the top, and then remove the door gasket off of this door and soak it in hot water and clean this up a little bit. It's a little funky. But other than that, we're almost done. So we're coming in on the home stretch. We'll get back to you as soon as this is done. So we cleaned everything up, soaked this door gasket overnight in hot water and citrus cleaner. Put it back on. This is the best we can get it. I can't get these stains out of there. They've been there so long. And we can't get a new door seal. So we're stuck with this. I also took off the side trim and cleaned that all up. And I'm going to reassemble the door and finish up this project. We're just about done. So just have to put the door on, and then also install the ice maker. That's not difficult to do. We also want to touch up a little bit more paint, touch up on the top of the machine. But other than that, we are almost home free here. So I cleaned up this stainless steel bracket here with some steel wool and a wire brush. Got some of the rust off. It looks better than what it did. And from here we'll also do the other frame that holds the basket in. Now it's pretty cold up here, out here on the East Coast. Right now I'm waiting for the weather to warm up so I can turn my water back on and run a test on this machine. So anyway, that's the door. We can put this back on. I preserved the customer's panel. I kind of reversed it and put the moisture laden part here up on the top where you don't see it as much. And so you have to put that door back on. Okay, so we finished painting. We're done. Everything's done except just have to put the door back on and get a new cover for the ice maker. But it's all back together. So before we put the door on, we're going to put some silicone, white silicone, to cover these gaps here, because I pulled out the old silicone so I could paint. I painted the breaker strips and around the perimeter of the door with epoxy paint. So on here, what you want to do is put a bead of silicone on here. And then get some water, wet your finger, and just rub it, force it in there like that. And that's how we do it. We'll do this side, and we'll do the ones in the corners on the top. That's a pretty deep gap in there. That's why I'm having a little problem with this. Okay. I'll let that dry. And we'll put the door back on. Now it's still pretty cold up here on the East Coast, Northeast. So I'm not going to be able to turn my water on to test this machine. I'm going to have to bring it inside my house and do it in there. All right, that's looking good. Been a long project. Probably will never do one of these again because there's not that many left out there. I do have other customers that have the same machine, and even though they're not working, there's nothing to replace it with, so they just leave them there to prevent having an eyesore. All right, so now we'll wait for that to dry. We'll come back, we'll put the door on, plug it in. What we could do is we can plug it in and make sure the temperature drops down. And we also painted the kick plate, which goes on like this. It's held in with 2 screws right there. And I think I have those. They're probably black. Here's a black one. Nope, that's not it. All right, I'll put some stainless steel screws in there. All right, that's it for now. We'll be back to button things up. I'm going to put the door on, then we'll put the basket in. Like I said earlier in the video, I mean, this was a really nice machine. Very simple, compact. I don't know why Sub-Zero stopped making it. I'm sure they had their reasons. But I think it was a great machine. They could have made a lot of improvements on it. Okay, I got to get this in a better position. There it goes. One of the ways they could have made improvements on this machine was just to put a regular door on it, you know, with reversible hinges, so you can open up the door this way or that way. Then what I would have done would put a shelf, a smaller bucket, because who needs that big bucket? Look at the size of that bucket. Who's going to use that much ice? And you're never going to get to the ice on the bottom, and it's going to all stick and congeal together. Smaller bucket, a shelf inside so people could put their cold glasses and ice cream or whatever else they use when they make drinks. That's what I would have done. But then again, it's not up to me. And it has just a simple ice maker in it. That's all you really need, instead of these just sophisticated machines. So, put the door on, put the kick plate on. You just have to put the basket in there and hook everything up. But in the meantime, I have one small thing to do, and that is to clean this rack. I got this wire brush here. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. I've already started it, and get these rust spots off here. Dressed it up a little bit. So I'll do this, and then we'll come back and put this in. And then that project, or this project, can also use steel wool. This project will be complete, with the exception of plugging it in. And even though we don't have water in our shop yet, we can still test the refrigeration system and make sure it pulls down in temperature, and then I can bring it inside and hook it up to a water line in my house. All right, so that's it for now. We will be back. We put the door on, we put the basket in, everything's looking good, we turned it on. Fan's running. The only thing is we don't have the water line hooked up, but we got a thermometer in here. We're going to check the temperature. Other than that, I would say that this project is 99% complete. We just have to check, make sure we don't have a water leak at that water valve. And once the temperature drops down, I'll bring it inside, hook it up to a water line, and finalize this project. Okay, we'll be back. This has been running for a while now, and we are down to 0 degrees temperature, which means the sealed system and everything is working fine. And so now one more last test is to hook the water line up and make sure the ice cube maker is working, and then we'll be done. Okay, so here's the story. This is how you jump out the water valve. You got an L, which is the lead, and the V for the valve. So you stick a jumper wire in here. Okay, and then you push the fan button in, the ice maker button. Okay, now the valve is open, water's coming in, I hear the air coming out. So now I don't know if any water's coming in, I can't see. Let's get in there. I hear it, but I don't see it. Ah. Remember I told you before about that push-in water line? Look at this. I hate those things. All right, let me get back to figure out what this is, and I'll get back to you. Okay, so here's the new valve. There's definitely something wrong inside here. I can see something's broken in there. You can see this. One of the reasons why I do not like to use these push-on valves. So we're going to have to get a new valve. But I found out another problem. When I went to remove the valve, it was constantly energized. And before we picked up this machine from the customer, she said she had a flood. So now I'm thinking, okay, there's something wrong with the ice maker because it's in a continuous fill mode. And so we're not only going to have to change this valve again, we're going to have to also change the ice maker. So, because how else could the water valve be energized but from the ice maker itself? So we'll get that parts we need. I have the ice maker here. I just have to see if I can get another one of these valves, because this is a special kind of valve. I'll see if I can find one that has a compression fitting. Okay, we'll be back. Other than that, everything's working. It's running fine. It's maintaining 0-degree temperature. We just have to straighten out this problem. Okay, friends. Here's the water valve that I purchased to replace the Sub-Zero. However, I found out why this Sub-Zero valve was leaking. This locking tab here was missing. I didn't realize that when I put it in. So I had a couple of old water valves up here, and I took one of the locking tabs out somewhere, one of these valves, and put it in here. So the locking tab is now in there, and it probably will work. However, as much as I like using Sub-Zero parts, I just don't trust push-in connectors. And even though there's a locking mechanism that you could buy that will lock this into position out so that the tubing doesn't come out, I don't know why Sub-Zero doesn't use them, but I do. So anyway, here's the part number. It's an IMV 494. This particular valve is made in Mexico. At least it's on the same continent. And I want to just match it up and see. It's a pain. I'm going to match it up and see if it's if it'll work. Now, I've been using Robert Shaw products for years, and I never had any problems with them. So here's the valve. So it's got the screw-on compression. Here's your intake. That's your discharge. Water in, water out. So let's see. This valve initially went like this. And this valve, let's see, if we put it on this way, the bracket's not in the right place. If we put it on this way, it's going to stick out a little bit, but that's okay. I think we're going to be able to put it on like this. Screw hose should match up. We'll run our supply line into here. This is a 1/4-inch compression, and we'll be able to use the compression nut on the supply line. Okay, so let's do that next. Here's what we did. we put this new valve on here, this Robert Shaw valve. Like I said earlier, there normally was a cover that went on it back here to cover all these tubing and everything, but it's missing, so I'm not worried about it. What I did was I added this little extension here, because this is where the inlet is. I'm just going to turn that in this direction. I much prefer these compression fittings on here because they are more reliable. Okay, so we can, I can't hook up the water yet because it's going to go down into the 20s tonight. So I'm going to have to wait on this for a day when we can get the water turned on. Maybe during the day tomorrow we'll see what the temperature is. But right now this is what it looks like. So now all we have to do is put this compression onto here. We're going to get a little sleeve that fits in there. Right here. See if this works. I realize this is in a little bit of an awkward position, but I'm going to feel much safer with this connection. And this only has to be hand tightened. So I'll put the cover back on. The units, I turned the unit back on after leaving it off for a couple of days, and it's been cycling off and on. I just heard the water valve energize. Now the compressor just started up again. So, and one more thing. The customer called us to rebuild this machine because she said she had a flood. So I think it might be prudent of me to change the ice maker in case, because the other day the water valve was being energized for much longer than it should have been. And that worries me. So I'm going to change the ice maker too. And then I'm also going to dress up this area here to make sure there's no vibrations. All right, that's it for now. We'll be back. Okay, I'm going to put a new ice maker in this machine. This is going to be the last thing we're going to have to do. We already changed the water valve, so we're going to change the ice maker. Just to be safe, because as I said earlier, the customer did say that she had a major flood, and that was the reason why she called us to rebuild it. And so here we are. All right, let's get the old one out. Here's the old one. This old ice maker, the arm was getting kind of hung up. I remember when it was in the cycle, the arm had to push the arm back down to go down. So there's just something not trustworthy inside this ice maker, and that's the reason why I'm replacing it. This ice machine is going into a multi-million-dollar apartment in New York City, and I don't want to take any chances. And I'm sure my customer would appreciate that. So here we are. Then what I'm going to do, since it's 20 degrees outside here on the East Coast, I'm in out on Long Island, New York. I'm going to bring the ice machine inside and hook it up to my water line to test it, because it's not going to get warm enough to turn my water on anytime soon. Alright, so I'm going to leave this a little loose so we can adjust it. Alright, so let's get this back in. As you can see here, I modified this harness. I'm adapting it to the old harness here. That's how we do it. Now, Sub-Zero did make a harness for this with this type of connection on it. They don't make them anymore, and I had a bunch of them and I used them all. So we're going to have to use this one. All right, let's get this baby in there. Okay, so the new ice maker's in. Just want to show you a couple things. I use this mirror to see behind there so I can get the screws in properly, because it's very difficult because of that harness. So once you get it in there, and you're going to have to play with it for a while. And also I use putty, a little piece of putty on the tip of my screwdriver here to hold the screws in there, because like I say, they're stainless steel, they're not magnetic. And once you get it in, then you can adjust the ice maker so that it's level. Make sure the arm goes up and down easily like that. You know, the old ice maker, the arm was getting stuck because there was some kind of a bind in there. But anyway, that's it. We're going to bring that ice machine now into the house, hook it up to a water line, test it, make sure it works, and hopefully be done with this project. Be back. Okay, so I've hooked up this ice machine in my house, and I'm going to bleed the air out of the system by energizing the water valve using this jumper wire and jumping between the lead and the V, which means valve. That will get all the air out of there, and then I'll put it into a cycle and turn the machine on. Careful, because this is a hot wire, the lead, even though the machine's turned off. I should have got a light, but okay. Machine's on. There it goes. All right, I heard that pop, which means it got the air out. So now I'm going to put the ice maker in a cycle by jumping between the motor and the thermostat. And be careful how you jump these out, because you could blow the thermostat out. You jump between these two here, and then you push the button in. See the wheel turning? As it goes through, the arm will go up. This takes a while. I just heard another click in there. That's bypassing the thermostat now, because once it turns on, it starts there's a heater underneath there that will heat up the mold, so the ice cubes can be ejected. This has been a long project. It's taken me quite a while. I haven't been keeping track of the hours, but we've changed a lot of parts on here, and we did the best job we could. I hope the customer's going to be happy. Now you can see the arm coming up. At this point, this is when the cubes get ejected. Water's coming in now. Stopped. The arm should drop down. There it goes. And the wheel stops. Okay, so it stopped. So now, put the cover on, put the bucket in, take this thermometer out for now. Okay. And that's it. So let's let it run, and we'll check it later and make sure we have ice. Now this ice machine's been running now for 24 hours, and we got ice. We got lots of ice. So now we'll consider this project complete. If you've been following along, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've learned something, and we will see you next time. We're going to shut the machine down, call the customer, and get this thing delivered. Thanks for watching.